when you visit places that live more tribal than, we live in the West, you'll notice that people rest. They don't have that concept of sleep when you die. They don't have that concept of competition to the extent that it sacrifices your well-being. Families take a break in the middle of the workday to come sit together and eat and talk and sleep, and then go back to doing whatever they're doing to work throughout the day. I'm very appreciative to my mother. I'm not gonna act like I would have ever had this figured out without her. My mother is named Nata Aska. My grandmother had a dream when she was pregnant that she should name her this name. She had never heard the name before. It's the name of a Hopi, like a war god in the Kachina system. And so she gave her this name. And as you would imagine, this name was her reminder to go back to reclaim herself. So after 1978, when the Freedom of Religion Act was passed for Native Americans, my mother went back and started to investigate what was indigenous culture like before. So by the time I was born, because my grandmother, they knew like, okay, we're indigenous, we're earth people. My grandmother was a sharecropper in Mississippi. And one thing about that is that it puts you in contact with the earth. You're constantly grounding, So when they went back to do the research, by the time I was born into some amount of awareness about the importance of reclaiming what was taken during the cultural genocide of colonization. So my older brother got kicked out of every school he ever went to, straight A student, right? But got kicked out of every school because he just, he wouldn't act right. He wouldn't behave in ways that would earn their trinkets. And so he got kicked out so much that my mother said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and homeschool him. And it was so effective that she said, okay, I'm gonna take all of my children out and I'm gonna homeschool everybody. So I think I came home maybe, first grade to third grade. I went to a Muslim school for 2 years, and then I went back to homeschool. My first time really going to a public school, I was in the 10th grade. So in my homeschool, my mother would say, now people call it unschooling, but she was doing this, back then. I think the government just called it child neglect. But she would say, okay, so for homeschool, you can go sit with your grandmother and shuck corn and pick greens and learn songs. And you can learn traditional recipes, Three Sisters soup, right? Because normally you would plant certain things together and the nutrients of those plants complemented each other. That's why they grew well together, because God already knows all things, right? So those things that grow together are giving you complete nutrition. So then we will cook those things that grow together and eat that way, So I would sit with my grandmother, and then when my grandmother would pour for the sweat lodge, I would go back there and I would learn to, pray over the trees before we cut them. We don't see ourselves as being better than the earth. We're not better than animals. We're not better than a tree. You're not. And you got to show respect if you take the life of a tree and is sacrificing yourself for your spiritual awareness and your higher being. You got to put down herbs for that tree. You got to put tobacco into the earth. You got to sit with that tree, feel its energy, and show it honor and respect for the life that is given up for you to be able to utilize it. Right? And that's homeschool. That's school. My mother gave me a class credit. When I got to public school, they gave me a 0. For everything I've learned. And then when I started getting into hip hop, she would say, I would ask her, right? Because my mother was very, very specific about what music they could play in the house. It's much harder to do that now because every child has a tablet, has access to the internet. But during that time, my mother was very particular about the lyrics, the vibration that was allowed to play in the house, Even to the extent that she didn't think you was a good singer, you couldn't be in the house, right? Hello. She was like, she can't, her no singing stuff can't be played in my house. So I would say, I was getting into the Wu-Tang Clan. I said, Mommy, I want to study the Wu-Tang for my for my language class. And so I would show up, listen, play the song, I would write out the lyrics. She said, okay, you know, RZA is dropping some knowledge, you know, and also because they were, I don't know if they were Muslim or 5%, but they were adjacent, yeah, like Islamic adjacent. So, you know, I could write down all the lyrics and I could write the definition and make a new sentence. So in essence, she was going so far against the grain, she was decolonizing us.
Yeah.
We couldn't have a television in the house.
Yeah.
We couldn't have a radio in the house. We could only listen to the things that she prescribed that she felt like was in alignment with our culture and our tradition. We had to eat foods that she felt like were full of energy, vitamins, nutrition. The conversations in the house had to be of a certain vibration. So she was, you know, already decolonizing us because, you know, she knew that when we went to the world, it was going to be something totally different. And I'm grateful to her because by the time I got into the industry, my mind was blown because I'm like, what is this place? You know, and I was raised so far away from that thought process that it wasn't any amount of money that they could pay me that was going to make me do what they were doing. I wasn't going to sing their songs. I wasn't going to promote what they wanted me to promote. You know, and they couldn't even understand. So when you like Afrocentric, I was like, a little more than that. A little more than that. A little deeper than that. They could never understand. You know, there were periods of time where I remember just keeping a toothbrush and a change of underwear in my little bag, my little book bag, because my mother might say, it's a full moon, we gotta go ride out to, you know, this place to go meet up with the Okanichi Saponi or meet up, there's a, you know, a sister coming from Tibet or somebody coming from Hawaii, we're gonna go sit up with them and pray. We're gonna do a rain dance, we're gonna go into the middle of the woods. And that was like a part of our curriculum too. And we'd go sit up in the woods all night and be in tune and, you know, do what we was doing. We was, you know, reacclimating ourselves to the pulse of the earth. And it's a process. Because if you raised in the city, like we was in Baltimore for a period of time, we was in Virginia for a period of time. But when you raised in the city, there's a certain pulse and energy inside the city, right? The lights, the Wi-Fi, all these different things. And when we moved down to Virginia, there was no lights. We moved to a piece of land where I've never seen such pitch black. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And I remember my grandmother was a kid. There were certain days of the week that she would just turn all the lights off. And she said, I'm listening to God right now. Be right on the quiet. Don't play nothing. Keep the lights off. And I'm like, oh man, grandma doing this again? She goes out and listen to God. And so that was a part of that process. So it's hard, right? When people use this term decolonization in very free form, like it's something simplistic. It is a change of everything that you've ever known. It's a change in your lifestyle.
So then right there, okay. I have a couple of questions. I'm gonna try to fuse it in, right? You spoke a lot about, you spoke a lot about various identities that you, like you Baltimore City and Virginia. There's Islam, there's indigenous stuff, right? Like there's you're black, right? You're hip hop.
Yeah.
You also sang your face off. Okay, a whole singer, right? Within those identities, I wanna make it. I feel like I'm a rivalry, all right? Sometimes our people, God bless them, can get real spooky, right? Whether it's we go way off deep into the Islam and now we are arguing over the sunnah and arguing over exactly what this means, whether we go way, way, way off deep into like 5% Nation and we fight in ciphers, right? Right? Whether we go even into like our pursuit of our African or Native roots, we get real in our earnestness, right? Yeah, in our earnestness to get to the truth. Sometimes our humanity can get in the way, right? And sometimes we can decide that if you hold this identity, you can't hold that identity. These things are competing. How have you lived in the fusion of all of them without going too far? Like,
see, to compartmentalize a thing is a colonized concept. There's no separation in God's creations. And I'm gonna get a little deep for a second,
Let's do it.
Because We're all matter.
Absolutely.
Everything is energy. Every last thing is energy. I'm gonna tell you I had a dream one time. Don't tell nobody, all right? And my spirit guides, they come to me and talk to me in my dream, right? And so it was a brother in the dream, and he said, "You know you can fly, right?" Mm-hmm. I said, "I can't fly." "What do you mean? No, humans can't fly." He said, he just shook his head like, "Silly girl, still consider yourself a girl." He said, "Well, because you're made out of the same thing the air molecules are made out of. There's no separation between you, this air, this space, that side of the room." You understand what I'm saying? And when we start to see ourselves in the oneness, and so let's come back to the oneness, right? Because the premise of Islam is La ilaha illallah. That's the oneness of God. When we start to see ourselves in the oneness, there's no difference between me and that other side of the room, or outside, or that tree, or because I'm all energy. This is all God's creation. So in a dream, as he was talking to me about seeing myself as the same as everything that God created, now all of a sudden I ended up across the room. Because I was already across the room, because there's no separation in God's creation. Now, that might be a little heavy, a little weird, a little deep.
No, it's not deep. I mean, it's not too heavy, but like I want you to just like unpack it at the next.
Yeah. So I think when we see ourselves as separate, then we are separate. Right? Because whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Right. This mind thing is powerful, and your perception is reality. So if I believe that this is hard and this is tangible and you can't go through it, then you can't. Right. But in some realities, that thing is not hard. In some realities, everything is pliable. We are pliable. When you believe you're stuck, then you're stuck. When you believe this is who I am, this is what then that's what you are. Now, I do think that in some stages of your development, sometimes humans need that.
Yes.
Because there are some parts of expansion that you expand too soon, you lose your mind.
Yes.
And you gotta take baby steps. So there are times when, and God knows best, that's why there are levels to things. There's a level where you gotta have on baby shoes, you gotta crawl before you walk, before you fly, right? So when you run, then you fly. So in those stages, it's necessary that you move that way. You got to say, and everybody is where they are in their level of understanding, and that's okay too. I don't think it's wrong. Wherever you're at, you're where you're supposed to be for where you are.
Have you ever gone in your youth, baby moon? Did you ever go deep off and have to course correct? Did you ever like lose? Like, get off your square.
I think so I started off seeing everything as the same, fluid. The same way I see genre. I didn't know what a genre was until I went in the music industry. It was just black music. It was an expression of emotion. It was like, today I have this feeling, and tomorrow I have that feeling, and this sound exemplifies that feeling. And this, people say like, you like to rap, you like to sing. I can't tell the difference. I don't know. It's an expression, whatever is suiting to explain that thing, right? It wasn't until I went to the music industry that they thought it was weird. And so I was like, is it weird? Right? I questioned myself because they questioned. I had never questioned it before. I had never thought like, hey, you can't do jazz and hip hop and blues and rock. It's the same thing to me. It's a lineage. I know where it started. I know how.
And all these people are hanging out together.
I learned how to singing slave songs. So I'm third generation Muslim. My grandmother had converted, my mother converted, so I was born into Islam. But my grandmother was a choir director, so I never grew up in church. So I would go to my grandmother's house, and she'd be sitting at the piano, or she'd be cooking or something like that, and she'll be singing, nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows the Jesus. So even though she'd already come into Islam, that stuff still was inside her, right? Because historically for Black Americans, those sounds were the sounds that we used to escape slavery. Even the concept of Jesus had to do with Canada. It had to do with freedom. It had to do with an idea of salvation. And it was deeper than just a biblical reference. A man who had lived in the Middle East. It was about go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go. So we utilized all connection to those names, those sounds.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I learned to by hearing my grandmother sing that. And for some of us was like, yeah, I know you ain't say Jesus. But my grandmother said it. And it meant freedom for her. I don't have the same attachment, like I ain't never celebrated Christmas. So on the December 24th, like, don't make me no difference. You know, people say, doesn't your son feel like he's being deprived of him?
No,
he doesn't know the difference. They don't know the difference. It's just another day, right? He don't have an emotional attachment. He doesn't feel like, hey, I didn't get a gift today. Nobody loves me. We don't think
Right.
We didn't, the consumerism is tied into it, the emotional guilt, we don't have none of that.
Right.
So when I hear my grandmother sing, what I hear from her is that tone. I hear there's something in her DNA that is healing herself through that thing. And so she taught me to do that. So now me and her going back and forth when we singing. You know, my mother sent me in the summertime. And then when my mother come down and she want to take my note, then I gotta find another harmony. Right. Take my note, right? Yes. I'm like, me and grandma already had this worked out.
have a note, mama. What is she doing?
Right. So it was fluid for me. When I got to the music industry, then I started doubting myself. Then I started saying, oh, maybe I need to try and do one thing. Maybe I need to try to make it palatable. Then I gotta try to squeeze my mind to now what is one.
So that right there, the maybe I should.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the maybe because we are born free.
Yes.
And then we are conditioned to fit, right? And then there are some of us, you've been blessed to be in a family that told you was free and made sure you knew you was free and same, right? But then you go into the industrial complex, right? Music, academia, whatever, military, whatever.
With the pressure of having to survive. You gotta make money.
Correct. I gotta make money. I gotta pay my bills.
And they tell you that if you don't conform, you're gonna invest into poverty.
Correct. So then there's the maybe I should.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I adjust. How long does that period look like in Mumu's life before you're like, I'm not gonna fit, let me give up, right?
Yeah.
And are there any moments, even though you've planted your stake in the ground, are there any moments of like, oh my God, did I make the right decision? Or are those fading? Like, how long did that make
It changes all the time. I'm never gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell you how powerful conversation is.
Yes, it's comprehensive.
Yes, it's never time. If you in this, I remember I was going to NA with my father, and he said it's easier for you to get dirty than to get clean. When you get clean, you can't hang around nobody who's ever done drugs before, because when you even step your foot inside of it, you're dirty again.
Absolutely.
And it's the same for this belly of the beast.
Yes.
The amount of time that you spend in it, like I literally gotta take breaks away from the music industry and go in the woods.
Absolutely.
To remember, because it is, it's a vicious beast. I ain't lying. It really, really is. It's hard. And it was set up this way. It's
not accidental.
So I think I spent some time when I was a teenager trying to fit in, because then I was being indoctrinated like, don't you want to be famous? You know you can be famous. I remember my first label, they said, man, you're so difficult. If you would just give up all that black power stuff and that woman empowerment, you could really be famous. You know, because like,
not wealthy instead of generational wealthy children.
Famous. Because it was like every R&B singer up until that point had done a naked album cover.
Right.
And I didn't want to do a naked album cover.
Yes.
No. And then I was like, why I gotta do it if everybody's already done it? I mean, come on, it's iconic. Well, I don't want to be naked on the cover. My daddy's gonna see this. Like, I got community. That's not what I want to do. You know what I mean? I had this whole idea. I was gonna have my indigenous everything. They were like, oh, hey, no. We ain't doing. Like, they were like, we gotta remove that part of you. But they understand it was so deep ingrained. It was nothing that they was gonna be able to do. That's it. Take it out.
That's right there.
They couldn't take it out. Like, you could maybe dim it a little bit, but you wasn't gonna take it out. So I think I spent some years really trying to figure it out. But by the grace of God, he's not in here right now, but I'm gonna tell you, my son saved me. Because there might have been sacrifices I would have made to try and fit into the industry, but I wasn't gonna put my son through that.
Yes.
Because once he was born, I knew I want you to know who you are.
Yes.
And I gotta be an example of that. I can't walk out here in the world blind, knowing what I know, and not give that to you. You know what I'm saying? I need to make sure that you're entrenched in the culture. I need to make sure that you are going to the powwows and you spend time to, out in the woods and you fasting during Ramadan and you doing all the things that I think ground you and help give you, purpose. And so that never allowed me to get too deep into that world because I had to keep him grounded,
So I got hopefully a comment, little question to the big question. So the comment is something you said on the, if y'all did not listen to Mumu Fresh episode on Jill Scott, J.L podcast, get your life. It is wherever you find your podcast. It's either authenticity or audacity. I forget what it is, but it's like a couple episodes ago. But you said something in that episode that had you right on my desk. Baby girl, it's not in you. It's not on you. It's in you. It's in you. You can't wash it off.
Right.
There's no twisting. So you could try to twist yourself. You could drive yourself in circles, and they still don't hate you because it's in you, right? So to that little question. What does it look like? What are your own personal indicators of when you're like, okay, you know what, I've been doing this, I'm starting to tweak, let me go find the woods. When do you know what, it's time to break out and get to the woods?
I think one, because I'm a Pisces in general, we have a certain sensitivity. Like I'm very sensitive. I remember I was telling a friend of mine, he wanted to go somewhere, and I said, well, who's gonna be there? And he thought I was in Hollywood, right? Like, who all in there? Who all over there? But what he don't realize, I said, well, it's because I'm energy sensitive. So I want to be sure who I'm going to be around so I can just either prepare myself with what energy I'm going to take on, or I can just say, that's going to be too much for me. They looked at me like I was crazy. Like, oh, you want that weird earthy stuff, right? And I said, look, I ain't got to explain this to you. At this point, I ain't got to explain it to you, but I'm going to fill out the space and know if that's something I want to take on or if it's not something I want to take on. Because I know myself at this point. You know what I mean? And so I'm really aware of the nuances of the shifts in my emotions. I'm an empath, so I'm always like, there's my ethereal body, like the energy field out around myself. Like I'm just conscious when things are moving back and forth, like, okay, wait. And I get ahead of it. I don't wait until I'm in it.
Yes.
I don't wait until I'm like, who's gonna be? Oh my God. Right?
You can feel it.
Oh yeah, I know what it's like now. Like I used to think that being sensitive meant that she was weak. Right. But I come from like, my mom, I don't know if you ever seen my mom, she's done shows with me before, but she considers herself a sovereign nation unto herself, right? And her children are her citizens. We are citizens of the sovereign nation. My mother's a powerhouse. She is a Virgo. And I told you she was named after a Pacino war guy, right? She was very, very, very powerful. So I was born real gentle, very observant, really introverted. I can't even say I ever really wanted to sing for people. I wanted to sing for myself, and then I ended up being like, well, I need to make some money. I guess I'll sing for y'all too. So it took me a while to learn to appreciate the fact that I'm a sensitive being and not look at sensitivity as a weakness, but as a heightened awareness.
Yes.
So I can feel from miles away.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But before you knew, what did it look like when you were at crash? When you were crashing?
It looked like mental illness. It looked like emotional distraught. It looked like, it looked like weakness. It looked like over emotion, I can't handle anything. It looked like anxiety until I really started understanding how to manage and how to get ahead of it. And when I need to take a walk, and I walk every single day in nature. Every single day I ground myself and I get it. And I realize the consistency of my morning ritual is what keeps me balanced. I get up, I make my salat, I do my meditation, I do my gratitude, what am I grateful for? I do my exercise, I ground myself, I spend time in the sun, get my body. Like, I had a whole regimen.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I just would let myself run ragged and let people pull me in this direction. That, oh, you want me to do this? All right. Oh, you need me for that? No, I'm busy. Don't even call me in the morning.
Yeah.
I got a ritual.
You got something to do.
So it's like setting, for really sensitive people, you really gotta set boundaries with people, and you gotta set boundaries with your own desire to please people, and you know what I mean? Because that can be really, really dangerous for you. And when you all used up, they're gonna go find somebody else to use. So it's really, really important that you set those boundaries for yourself.
Speaking of the boundary transition, I want to respect yours and make sure we get you to the stage on time. So I'm going to ask you another question.
What time?
4:50. Thank you. So listen, but anybody in the room have a question?
I want to acknowledge somebody too. One of my friends from high school is here. Sia is in the room. Oh, I was thinking about her because I said, man, I'm sure she got a story. She knew me as a 13-year-old leading protests against the local department for not letting me sing Negro spirituals like a black person. He told me I sang too black. And
he wanted you to sing contemporary spirituals?
He wanted me to sing like this Jubilee sing. I said, I can't because when I sang classical the whole first semester and you told me that I sang too black and I should sing it and honor the people who created it. So I need to sing it like an Italian. I did. Okay. I trained myself to sing like an Italian. So now when it's time to sing spirituals that came out of the fields, you're going to also respect my ancestors and you're going to sing it like they wrote it.
Well, and you know what?
Kicked me out of class.
And I'm just saying, I'm the child of Fizz Jubilee singer. I went to Fizz. A lot of people even get that stuff twisted. Okay. Because it's like they're singing, they're adjusting themselves for white gays to get money. Yeah. That's not even how they sang their own music. They sang it like you sang. Right. They just adjusted for performance to get the coins.
Got it. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which we've been doing.
Right. Anyway, I ended up leaving the vocal department. I wouldn't sing anymore because I said if I can't sing it, because you told me I sang too black. So now I'm singing black music and I'm still singing too black, but now I'm not gonna sing period. So now I walked out of it and he told me if they was gonna kick me out of school. And
is it BSA? Like what?
No, this is I'm not gonna say that one, okay. But I met Sia around that time and I was able to get into the department that she was in. I just started writing my raps down and I presented them and they allowed me to come into the writers department. Because I said, man, if I can't think for myself, I don't want to sing. So I refuse to sing on behalf of the school because you won't let me think. I can't be a thinker because the thinker in me says that this doesn't make sense. Yes. And so if my voice doesn't matter, I'm not going to use it no more. So I'm just going to, I joined the writers department and wrote for the newspaper and led all types of, initiatives against that and trying to, make sure that singers were able to be thinkers and were able to sing black music as black people, the way our voices naturally come out of our mouth, right? The way our palate is set up in a wide range to sing this type of music. We shouldn't be forced to narrow our palate if that's not the way God made our mouths.
Hello. Do you have a question?
I do.
Ask it. Take a mic.
Sorry, I have an answer question for my 2006. Can you talk about what it was like working with the Roots on Don't Feel Right? Right.
So, say it one more time so we can understand.
Sorry, I wanted to know what it was like for Mumu Fresh to work with the Roots on Don't Feel Right. It's a song from the Roots album, Game Through.
Yes. So, the funny thing is I never worked with the Roots on that song. Dice Raw was writing the song.
Okay.
He asked, I came in from work and he said, can you record this reference idea? And I laid the reference idea down. It was supposed to be for another artist to sing. And by the time the Roots came off tour and heard the song, they loved it so much that they kept me on the vocal. But at the time, I was like a nameless teenager. So it just so happens that they loved the performance so much and ended up getting nominated for a Grammy. So it worked out. God had a different plan. Thank you so much.
We get one more audience question.
Thank you so much for the beautiful discussion here. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask you about this technology piece that you brought up. You had this beautiful family that was allowing for that gift retreat, right? Yeah. But what about now? What do you see for yourself, for other people, raising kids, technology, and how much that decolonization aspect I feel like is really tough right now?
It is very tough. I mean, what I try to do for my son is take him spaces where he can't get Wi-Fi. To be more intentional about separating ourselves from other people's thoughts and just taking time. Like I went through a whole period where I was like, all right, I'm not gonna get on Instagram until 6 p.m. or whatever those things are. When you feel like, all right, I'm being bombarded right now, or I'm not, I don't feel balanced, or especially if we taking in a lot of trauma online, You're watching a lot of black murder, you're watching, and it becomes overwhelming. When it's time to like, all right, I'm not gonna take this in. Because, right, we know that the things you digest is not just the things you eat, right? It's absolutely what you see, it's absolutely what you hear, is what you're absorbing. And so, You know, the same way we gotta make good choices about the foods that we eat, we also gotta make those choices about things we absorb and through all of our senses. And for my son, I think probably the best thing I could have done for him is created a relationship with him where he values my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the generation before, it was like, do what I say or get a beating. Right? That doesn't really work.
No.
We just gonna do what you don't say when you're not around.
Okay.
Right? And so I decided when he was real small not to beat him and to have conversations with him early on, and to reward him when he's doing the right thing, to speak positive affirmations to him. Like I remember when he was about 5 years old, he started lying a lot. And I was like, why is he lying? Then I felt like, oh my God, I'm a bad parent. My kid is lying. So I'm looking online like, what do you do when your kids are lying? Right? And I read one article that said, why do we expect children to master a skill that we ourselves have not mastered? And normally people lie when they're afraid of something. Find out what they're afraid of. So I sat down and I had to talk with him. First of all, I took the judgment out of it, first of all, because I was like really feeling like judgmental, like how could you lie? You're a punishment for lying. So I said, you know what? I started telling about times when I lied. You know what? I get it. I see, let's meet eye level, right?
Yes.
And then I said, what are you afraid of? And he told me what he was afraid of. And I said, babe, I don't want you to fear nothing but God. Real talk, I don't want you to fear nothing but God. So even if you think I'm gonna be disappointed, I want you to tell me I'm not going to respond. And I had to make that point to myself, no matter what he told me, I wasn't going to respond in a negative way. I don't want you to fear nobody but God. I want you to do the right thing because that's a part of your code. I want you to stand on your code and your creed and your integrity as a man. You know what I mean? And that's more important. I want that to be what. So I want you to know that if you break your code to yourself, that's more disrespectful than not doing what I say don't do. I want you to have a code within yourself where you defend yourself even before you defend me. You know what I mean? And then, after having that conversation with him, he would practice it each time because I would see when he's going into lie about something that's not even important. And then I said, baby, are you honoring yourself? And he would stop and say, okay, I did such and such. I tore up the blah, blah, blah. I knocked over the cat's litter. I drug the blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I appreciate that. Don't fear nobody but God. I don't even want you to fear me. I want you to respect me because I respect you. I want you to love me because I love you, right? I want this thing to be mutual. You and I are the same team, right? It's going to be a lot of people in this world that ain't on your team. You ain't going to never meet a better friend than me. I'll be the best friend you ever going to have in your life. Because my love for you is unconditional. No matter what you do, it's not going to change. I'm going to hold you down like real talk, right? So once we established that, it's been the best time that I've spent developing my son because now the stuff that he tells me, people always like, your son told you that? Yeah. You know, we have those times. There are times like he told me recently, he's 15, they said, hey, look, Mom, there's some things that I'm not going to tell you. And there's some things you don't want to see, okay? But it's a conversation that we're having. And he knows when I ask him, I say, hey, Pop, I think you looking at too much TikTok. Or, you know what I mean? I'll say different things. I say, but I'm also going to give you the decision. Do you feel like this is most beneficial for your mental health? Do you feel good after you watch this? Do you feel energized? Do you feel strong after you engage with these people this way? He's like, nah. So if that's the truth, then I want you to make a decision to honor yourself and separate yourself from things that are draining you. Is it a fountain or is it a drain? If it's a drain, then it's only causing your weakness, right? The same as during Ramadan. The first time he fasted and I came on my cycle, he said, that's not fair. Why do women get to not fast on the
But you make them up, don't you? Why do women not get to? I said, hold on,
don't talk about why do women, unless you want to talk why do women have to carry babies. Why do women have to be half torn apart, giving birth to you? Why do women have to, you don't even want to hear about what it feels like to breastfeed. Being engorged, going through the whole, don't, because you ain't built like that. So just stop about women. You know what I mean? I said, and Pop, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you that you got to fast. I'm going to tell you that in order to be anything great in this life, you gotta build discipline. Every great man that was ever torn down, before he was torn down by the government or by whoever else, he was torn down by his own weakness, by his own vices. The FBI systematically will use your vices against you, whether it's women, whether it's drugs, whether it's jealousy, whether it's your ego. They'll find out what your vices are and they'll use your vice to tear you apart. The more you work on your vices, then you become invincible. So do you want to be great or do you want to be weak? I'm not going to tell you not fast, but I'm going to say if you ever want to be great, it starts here with your discipline. So baby, go do what you want to do. All right, I'm gonna keep fast. You sure? Huh? Are you a king or are you a mere mortal? Are you a peasant? You know, and I let him make the decision for himself. I don't lean on him about doing what I want you to do. I just want you to be great, baby. And whatever that look like for you, be honest with yourself. You ain't offending me, you offending yourself. You know what I mean? And it totally changed how he responded. Because I remember when we was kids, I wasn't, but we had all types of Slim Jims in the toy chest and chips and drinks and whatever else, right? Because your parents are saying, you gotta do this. You know, you want to fast for a law. The kids ain't listening. They over there singing. If you don't fast, God's still gonna be God. Hello? Yes. But if you don't reach your highest potential, that's on you. You got an opportunity, and if you choose not to reach your kingship, that's on you, baby. Right? Yeah, man. You've given us these things, and then y'all at 6 o'clock, and that's why I gotta get on out of here. All right, sis is about to do more things. Okay. What's the name of the record? North Star? Is that the name of the record, or that's the song? What's the name of the record? Of the album? Yeah. Queen of Culture. Yes. Listen. Listen. I mean, what do you want? You want a lullaby about reparations? You got that, right? You want fire bars? Rap God. Like, what do you want? The record is, yo, I'm not even fronting. What's the one? Back to the Money? Listen. Did that thing. It's a fire. Please, wherever you get your music, look for Queen of Culture. Came out last year. Earlier this year, July. So it's June. Came out June of this year. Because what is time? I know. I said, well, when you get No, but y'all, and I'm not. Some of y'all know me. I'm not one for just blowing smoke or lying because don't nobody pay me for it. I'm telling y'all, it's worth it. And I think I wish we had more time because there's music that gives you life. There's music that is medicinal. There's music that, as a culture warrior, a light bearer, that you can turn on to be fuel. Is it a fountain or is it a drain? That record is a fountain of life. So we thank you so much. We thank you for your work. We thank you for what you do. I want to ask you 2 words, but I feel like you're gonna give me a couple. You know I don't know how to say words. And just the short words. What is your wish or blessing for our people in pursuit of our freedom? Come on, you know I know. 2 words. Just give me what's just give us something to chew on, something meaty to chew on before we go. I would just say our personal development, doing a personal development work, working on self. I used to think revolution had to do with, marches and fighting against the government and fighting injustice, and I realized that we can't be effective outside because we're not effective inside. Yes. And if we don't do the personal development work, right, and that's healing your trauma and your triggers, dealing with your ego, dealing with your sense of not enoughness, with our insecurity, with our brokenness, with all of that stuff. If we don't deal with that, that's what's going to eat us up before anything else do. So, personal development, and my music changed once I started feeling like that. I was like, in the same way when I'm working with young people, I'm like, I can't tell you to go be great if you don't feel great on the inside. Yeah. If you feel not enough, if you feel worthless, if you feel undeserving, if you feel like nobody loves you, if you feel like you're not worthwhile, what do we can't even talk about doing well in school. For what? Why would I? You know what I mean?
Because then you just gonna get a great job
but you can't even feel it. When people love you, you can't even feel the love. You can't absorb it. Because the subconscious belief is that I don't deserve love. You know, and so that's why I started really feeling like that's the shift. That's where my focus is on my music, is on personal development, you know, is on, like, I'm utilizing so many different, like, therapy, things I've learned in therapy and adding it to songwriting, and I'm teaching it. You know, I just did a workshop at a methadone clinic. I've done workshops inside of prisons. I work in schools. Like, to me, that's what we gotta get out, the self-healing, the self-work. And if we can start with self, if we can fix the brokenness inside, the whole world can come together. We're gonna be all right.
That's the word. Y'all, let's give it up for our sister.
Thanks for watching this video from NEXTfest Culture and Conversation series, presented by CapitalBop. There is no way to fully replicate the spirit of those days at NEXTfest, but we are so glad to have this curated archive to share with you. At CapitalBop, our mission is to promote, present, and preserve the sound and soul of DC. To stay connected, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, or find us at CapitalBop.com. Be sure to subscribe to CapitalBop's YouTube channel for more content like this. And again, that's CapitalBop with an A, CapitalBop.com. Maybe I'll catch you at the next show.